My name's Ben Gochberg, and everybody's rested when they should be working. So what does it mean to make an exception for strength? I'm going to tell you a couple of little stories here. Many of you know that most of my career was spent in banking, and I remember when I first became a lender, I worked under this guy named Gochberg, and I had gone out in the community, I had turned over some stones, and I had found this deal, and I was really excited about finding this lending deal, and so I rushed back and had the application, I got everything together document-wise, and I walk into my boss's office, and we start looking through things, because I'm a rookie, I don't know anything. So we start looking through all these documents that we've gathered up, and we start to see problems. We started to see deductions that shouldn't have been there. We started to see income that we couldn't explain. We started to see problems with the industry that I was trying to lend to. All things that if I had pushed pause and thought about what I was doing, I might have been able to see in advance. So I start looking at many of these problems, and of course I had already thought through some of the things that were arising as issues, and so I said, but what about this? I mean, we can make an exception in this case because this client has gone through some rough times, and things haven't turned out the way that they should have been, but based on normal circumstances in a normal economy, this might be a good deal. And my boss said something to me that stuck with me that I then learned about more and more, and that is that in banking and in life, we should be making exceptions for strength, not for weakness. So what does that mean to make an exception for strength? Well, let me tell you what making an exception for weakness means. It means that, and let's talk about it from the personal life perspective now. So let's say that you have a particular job to do, and that job is to be able to go out in the community and get some information in front of potential clients. You show them that information, some of them buy, some of them don't. Well, what some people do is as they go through the process of reaching out to people and starting to invite people to look at information, whatever they happen to be selling, that process starts to wear them down. And instead of pushing in further and becoming stronger by doing more repetitions, once they get told no a couple of times, or once they have a couple of hard phone calls or a couple of hard experiences, they say, you know what, I've done enough work for today, that was a little bit rough, so I'm going to back off of this and I'm going to take a break. That is the wrong response to the stimulus that you're given. The correct response would be, once you have a couple of rough ones, that's when the real test begins. That's when you're actually exercising your muscle. You're putting in repetitions that are going to cause you to be stronger. I mean, if you can never take a couple of hard interactions, how could you possibly get to the point where you could grow something that really mattered, something that was large enough that would really matter to you and to a lot of other people? So justification for strength means that you take your rest, you take your break once you've really worn out your muscle, once you've pushed past where you normally would have stopped before. So look, if that, if as a professional salesperson that means that you can only last 5, 6, 7 calls and then you need a break, fine. But the next day, you have to do the same amount of reps, and you have to be working out your muscle to the point where your willpower becomes stronger and stronger. And why? Well, as you work out that willpower muscle, as you decide to rest when it's appropriate to rest, rather than resting just because you got hurt mentally, you start to become really strong, and you start to put in repetition that over the long haul will make you much, much stronger and allow you to do much greater things. So let me give you a personal story about this. I share something culturally in common with a lot of folks out in Utah. I grew up LDS, I grew up Mormon, and as many of you might know, the custom is, if you want to, in your late teen years, you can go serve a mission where many of us would set appointments with people for the purpose of teaching them about the Bible and teaching them about the religion. Very, very exciting stuff. very difficult as well, especially if you have to generate some of those appointments by going door to door, knocking on doors. Yes, I did that for 2 years. Some of it was not effective, and I learned that only later in life. But one thing that also happens is you might have an opportunity to learn a language and speak that language with other people. So I was called to speak in Spanish. This was when I was 19 years old. And we had a rule that when you were first in the mission, you would not speak English until you were at the point where you had control of the other language. So for me, that meant that I didn't really speak a lot of English for about 6 months. Now, anyone who has ever tried to learn a second language knows that that can be extremely frustrating. But that frustration, the amount of work that that took to get good at Spanish, is something that paid tons of dividends later on. Yes, it was the most painful 3 to 6 months of my life, but those painful 3 to 6 months helped me make a return that is incomparable over the last 10 years, because I had developed a skill that was worth developing, and I had developed it to a point where I was very good at it. I had achieved a level of mastery that most people don't get to achieve. So, in the end, make an exception for your strength when you're demonstrating strength. Push into the struggles that you have to push into to get better, to put the repetitions in on things that actually matter and can pay you long-term dividends. If you do that, who knows what'll happen? Just don't practice skills that won't pay you long-term. Like, here's another good example. I made pretzels for 2 years of my life. They paid me $7.25 an hour to roll pretzels at Pretzel Maker. I am extremely good at rolling pretzels, but guess how much that pays me now? Nothing. What have you spent years of your life on that aren't paying you? And I'm not saying that money is the goal, but I'm paying you, spiritually paying you in dividends, socially, mentally. Spend your time, your willpower, and your struggle on things that matter. And if you do, you'll probably get a good portion of what you actually want. That's it. Have a good Thursday. I'm gonna go grab some lunch. Bye.